Putin has issued Russia's energy resources to coerce and manipulate its neighbors. That's how he's used it. He's used the profits to drive his war machine.
That's President Biden. He was in Belgium this week and then wrapped up in Poland on Friday. Senator Jack Reed is in studio with me. Senator, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Gene.
Nice to have you back. Let's begin. You and I are taping on a Friday. The president just arrived in Poland. What's the mission over there?
Well, the mission is to continue to keep our alliance strong, and it's a remarkable diplomatic feat to bring not only the NATO countries together, but countries like Switzerland for the first time have abandoned their traditional neutrality, all to try to diffuse and deter the Russians. That, together with our military presence, is a significant reason why the Ukrainians are doing well. But the most important reason is the courage of the Ukrainian people and the leadership of President Zelensky. But you know, we have to keep the pressure on, and his presence there signals once again to the Russians that we are there to ensure there is an appropriate resolution of this crisis.
Okay, I'm going to pick up on two words you just said. You said deter. The president yesterday said, well, the sanctions weren't deterring anybody. Did you hear him say that? My threat of sanctions were not meant as a deterrence. How's that possible? Because his cabinet members were saying the very opposite before they went in.
What is happening, it is a combination. I think he might be alluding to that. Deterrence alone will not, sanctions alone will not stop them. Sanctions together with the world community standing as one, and with two notable exceptions, China and India, but the world community standing as one, with intelligence operations, which he has used very adroitly. We believe we've been able to prevent some false flag operations the Russians planned, because we basically the day before said they're going to do this, and they couldn't do it. So that combination of a whole of government approach and international approach, together with the courage of the Ukrainian people, that's it. So I think the real nuanced definition is sanctions alone doesn't work. Everything has to work.
You said the Ukrainians are doing well. Are they doing well? They're getting hammered as we speak. And by the way, one of the great minds in history said truth is the first casualty of war. Do you have better reporting than I'm consuming? One day I see Putin could be out of his mind because he's put on a few pounds. One report, Daily Mail, had 40,000 Russians either killed or captured. Another was 5 to 7. We're all over the map.
We have intelligence, and I think we have very good intelligence, but it's never perfect. And the most difficult things to assess in intelligence are the intangibles, the fighting spirit of the Ukrainians. I think we underestimated that. The capability and the leadership of the Russians, I think we overestimated that. And then we also didn't, because we thought they had mastered conventional warfare, we didn't grasp the fact that they would have logistical problems, they would have problems moving around, and I think what they did is they misjudged the Ukrainians also significantly. They thought they were going to sweep in, and they didn't. And the fight is very fierce in places. Around Kyiv, it looks as if the Ukrainians are beginning to push back the Russians. In Mariupol, the Russians are using everything they can to, destroy the city, but the Ukrainians refuse to surrender. Again, another signal of we're determined.
You were in the audience when Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, he addressed you almost personally and everybody else, please help me, I need a no-fly zone. Is that fair of him to keep pressing for a no-fly zone, knowing that would have you firing at the Russians? It's World War III. He's getting pretty good reviews, but let's push back a little. Is that fair?
Well, the question, I think he understands that for many reasons the no-fly zone is not an option. But I think he also understands that his country and the lives of all his countrymen are at stake. He is in a desperate position. It's like, in a way, Churchill in 1939, 1940, and I'm sure he made many claims and many statements trying to urge us into the battle. It might not have been fair, but it was understandable.
Okay. How fair is it to us here at home? You know, the president's been softening us up. Expect high gas prices. Just today, he said, expect real food shortages. Here in the U.S., the quote is, it's going to be real. The price of sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. Imposed upon us? You mean I've got to pay more for this? Is that fair to us?
This is a situation where the American people have to make a decision with their feet, really, not just with their voices in the vote, whether we're going to really stand with Ukraine and stand against Putin. Here's the consequences. If Ukraine had fallen quickly, that would not have sated Vladimir Putin. The next step would be the Baltics, I believe, to take those over. The next step would be Poland. And then it would be this march. If we can stop him now, it'll be a historic feat. And also, if we can prevent this situation from escalating to a direct conflict. And so these sanctions are critically important. The problem we have is that both the Ukraine and Russia are major wheat growers and major producers of fertilizer. That's going to impact.
And natural gas, right?
And natural gas.
For the Germans.
And Germany is making sacrifice. It's going to be a worldwide sacrifice. But this is one of those things where I think the president is right to stand up and say ahead of time, this is going to be a tough go, rather than sort of pretend this is easy. No. It's not easy.
You're really telling the people in Cranston and Warwick, well, yes, you're going to pay higher gas and you may have gas shortages because it's worth saving Ukraine? Do you really think that he was going to march and grab NATO countries?
Oh, absolutely.
That may be it. It's a hard sell sometimes, Senator. Right?
No,
people
it is,
are looking at their 401k and it's a long way away.
No, people, they justifiably are concerned about the economic situation here, and particularly, working families and people who can't avoid, buying food for the kids. I met with a young woman this week from Providence, and she's trying to get her CCRI degree. She has 2 jobs. She has a social worker during the day and a banquet waitress at night. She's raising 2 children. And we were talking. She said, when she goes to the store, she goes through every, clipping to get every coupon she can get. It's tough. But, the consequences, I think, of sort of, just standing by and letting Ukraine collapse will not be just limited to the Ukraine.
All right, listen, you've made it clear that this is worth whatever price we're paying at home to save Ukraine.
Well, I think we can alleviate and try to alleviate some of the prices. One is that, I've called upon, and the President has taken some steps to release fuel from the National Petroleum Reserves. There are contemplations of, trying to provide some gas tax relief. Connecticut just passed legislation.
Yes.
There are things we can do to help mitigate, particularly for working Americans. But I think we would be dishonest if we stood around and said, oh, this is easy. We're not, nothing, you won't feel a thing. We have to be honest.
Just a couple of quick footnotes. You're right, Connecticut passed no gas tax. Take away the quarter gas tax in Connecticut, April, May, June.
Yeah.
Maryland did it, Georgia did it. Now, perhaps you and I are taping on a Friday. Rhode Island may or may not do it. Would you urge the legislature to drop the state gasoline tax? They might be listening.
Well, no, I think what I would do is it has to be considered, and it has to be done in a way that, first of all, the savings are passed on to the consumer, not to the hydrocarbon companies. And also, we have to understand that that gas tax is the way we pay for road construction.
Yep.
We meet the federal money that we help bring in, Sheldon, Jim, and David and I, that has to be matched 20% with state money. So we have to do that. So if they can figure out how to accomplish those missions, I think it would be a sensible approach.
Well, they've got a surplus. They've got the $1 billion that you brought in for ARPA money. Is that possible that we could take some of the $1 billion and throw it at the gas tax and alleviate it for the next 3 months? Is that allowed?
The flexibility is such. I'd have to go back and double check, but there's great flexibility in ARPA money. And in some respects, money is fungible. So they could, move money that they were going to spend on a certain project, which is clearly covered by ARPA.
What about the federal gas tax?
Federal gas tax we should consider. But once again, that goes to our basic highway reimbursement to the state. That's been dedicated to highway construction since President Eisenhower instituted it in the 1950s.
Well, we're throwing a lot of money around.
We are.
And Larry Summers, who was President Obama's chief economic advisor, you know him, president of Harvard.
I do.
He said you threw too much money around. That's why the economy is overheated. And he dropped inflation right at President Biden's doormat. And you voted for some of these programs. Is Larry right?
I don't think so. I think basically the inflationary pressure started with supply interruptions caused by COVID. One of the first items that became very expensive, automobiles. Not because we were spending a lot of money, federal money on automobiles, it's because they couldn't find the chips. and that drove the price of used cars up dramatically. We're seeing the same thing with respect to other products. Consumer demand has increased, but what he's not taking into consideration is what would have happened had we not acted. First of all, our actions have driven down the unemployment rate dramatically. Yesterday's filings for first-time unemployment are the lowest since, I think, the 1960s and 1950s. We've got a 3.8% unemployment rate. People are desperate, companies are desperately looking for workers. Wages are going up. So without, I think, some of the steps we've taken, we might have seen what we did in the 30s, where production collapses and households have nothing.
I want to get to some other issues, but let's just wrap this up before we go to a break. There's talk in Congress of maybe giving people some kind of a gas card, some kind of direct relief. But again, there's an income threshold for that. And I'm puzzled. Why is that, Senator? Because you should get the gas relief too. You spend gas.
No, listen, we have to be realistic. There are very well-to-do people, and I'm certainly able to pay for my gas, even if it gets expensive. But you look at families like the young lady I spoke about. 2 children, 2 jobs, trying to get a college degree. They need it before people who are, living very comfortably with 2 or 3 homes, and the children are all out of college. We have to be realistic, because it goes back to the point I think you're getting at. If we're spending too much money, then we have to balance how much we spend and who will get that benefit.
I read 75,000 would be the cap. That could be a cop and a firefighter. That could be a teacher who's been around for a while. And an ACI, a correctional officer. They're not rich people.
No, they're not. But I think that what we're trying to reach is those who are most in need of help.
Okay.
That's a question for them of choosing between rent, gas, or food.
All right, I understand maybe priorities.
Yes.
You first, then you first. But certainly 150 household income is not rich after taxes. It's not that much.
No,
to send your kids
we're
to
not
college.
talking about that, but we're talking about, I think, starting with relief. Again, we could do it for everybody, but people with several homes and driving $100,000 cars and gassing up, I think some of my constituents would say, hey, that's not fair.
Senator Jack Reed is with us in studio. Senator, before we went to break, we were talking about maybe giving gas cards, gas relief on a federal level. We'd send you either a $500 check or a $100 check, whatever it is. It's not done yet. It's an idea. And we were batting around maybe people who make over $75,000 ought to get it. Right now, that's a cap. In Rhode Island, there's a move now to raise the income tax. There are some far left Democrats in your party up there at the State House. They want to go from 5.9 to 8.9. And on the radio, we're having a very spirited discussion about chasing more people out of Rhode Island. You know the bold-faced names as soon as they can to get down to Florida. What are your thoughts on that? The flight from Rhode Island because people want to go to Florida.
Well, you would like to see people stay for many reasons. One is that they've been contributing to this state for their whole lives, and taxes is an issue. There's no doubt about it. And it's competition between different states, and that's a factor that has to be weighed when you consider raising income taxes. This is a moment, though, where the state is enjoying significant surplus, significant federal assistance, and so the logic of a tax increase here to pay for critical education, et cetera, is not as compelling as in previous times when we really had to just balance our budget and there was only one recourse. So I think that should be carefully studied, but with this surplus in place, I think we can look at different ways. And one other way, too, about the tax system is we just tend to talk about both, what's the rate, et cetera, rather than what are the technical exemptions, what taxes do we impose that really are just disincentives to businesses, what taxes can we impose that will not chase business out, in fact, will help them come in.
Does this raise a larger issue of division in your party? Now, there are some far-left progressives up there. They want to jack the income tax up on the very same people who keep the state going. 5.9 to 8.9. Some of them are the same people who say defund the police. Does this make you cringe when you're behind doors with your other Democrats?
No,
you must be saying, what's going on here?
Listen, I think one of the things that both parties, but I think my party has been engaged in is a vigorous debate about...
That's a nice way to put it, Senator.
No, it's true. But if we don't have that debate, if we are all sort of stereotypical, we fall in line, then you don't get some of the creativity and the innovation and the ideas that we need to move forward. So I think, I think the debate is extremely useful. And frankly, we're very fortunate in Rhode Island. We have extraordinary public safety officers, police and fire.
Yeah.
They are courageous, they sacrifice, et cetera. And also their leadership in Providence, Chief Clements, their contact with the community, they've done a superb job, I think. And it's not just about, having the equipment, it's getting to be with the people. So
you're the senior statesman now for the party. You're it. You fit comfortably into Senator Pell's shoes. Everybody knows you. You're the guy. So what do you say to some of these younger Democrats? Defund the police. Some of them said abolish the police. This is going to be an issue in the Providence mayoral election because I'm going to ask them.
No, I got to tell you right now, we are fortunate. We have, I think, police that are very sensitive to the communities. It was demonstrated, again, by the Providence in the wake of the George Floyd killing, where they were able to work directly with Black Lives Matter to understand that there is an issue here in the communities of police approaches, police tactics, and they've taken it and they've got dedicated community police officers. And I think we have to get away from sort of this notion of, surplus military equipment, that's what we give them. What we have to do is make sure that they understand the social dynamics that are going on, better education, better training. And I think we're doing that in Rhode Island.
All right, fair enough. This leads us nicely into the Supreme Court. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is going to be passed. You're going to vote for her.
Yes.
Senator White House is going to vote for
Yes.
her. He made that very, very clear. She may get no Republican votes. This is like a kabuki dance. However, we're going to look back in history. We're going to look at this answer. Somebody said to her, "Can you define what a woman is?" You've heard this. I'll play it for you, then you react.
No, I was Marsha Blackburn.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of the-
If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the
All right.
law and I decide.
Senator, you could give me the definition. You married one. You have a daughter.
I have a
I
daughter.
married one. I have three
Right.
daughters. What was so hard about answering that question?
Well,
It's the one that's going to stick out.
Yeah, it is going to stick out, but it was not a question that was posed as in my view, a serious evaluation of her qualities to be a justice on the Supreme Court. It was kind of political grandstanding because of all these transgender, transsexual legislation throughout the country.
Wouldn't that be the follow-up, though, Senator? She never
Well,
asked the follow-up. I mean, if someone says, "Can you define a woman?"
Excuse me.
Yeah.
There should have been a follow-up. The reason I'm asking this question is, what is your legal position on laws, et cetera? That wasn't done. This was part of a lot of theatrics that we observed. We had Senator Hawley talking about not strongly sentenced child pornographers. And guess what? He voted for Republican judges appointed by Trump that did the same thing as Judge Jackson. Senator Cruz was talking about all these terrible critical race theory at the school who she sent her daughters to. He sends his daughters to
I just saw that
schools
this morning.
in Houston.
Yes. You've read the papers.
Yes,
Yeah.
but so we're talking not about probing someone for what's your political philosophy, how would you decide this, what is your sense of that. This was just, in many respects, I said, political grandstanding.
All right, Senator, the question was direct. Can you define a woman? She said, "I can't. I'm not a biologist."
Well,
I mean, you could see.
No, I think, frankly, it was a trick question, and I think the judge responded by saying, "I don't want to go there." The other factor, too, is if you're serious about this, is that there has been an evolution in the world over our lifetime,
Right.
where the issue of gender is both the psychological and physiological combination.
She
of
could have
factors.
addressed that, Senator.
No,
she
she
could have
could've.
said, "By the way, we know about different chromosomes. We know about the different body makeups. However, we're in this area." She didn't say that.
No,
she said, "I'm
she-
not a biologist. That's why she's getting hammered."
Well, the hammering comes because you know, frankly, very deliberately, several members on the other side just wanted to get her into a situation where she is commenting upon issues that are very controversial and very much controversial in their base. And as we point out, as you notice, a lot of these were so hypocritical questions that I think the judge just sort of handled it. And it's a fair answer to say.
I want to be fair. You noticed they were hypocritical, not me. I just raised the question. You know what? Let's give Mitch McConnell the last word before we go to a break. This is the other side. We want to be fair and balanced.
Well, let's do that.
Go ahead.
I went into the Senate's process with an open mind, but after studying the nominee's record and watching her performance this week, I cannot and will not support Judge Jackson for a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court.
Senator Reid, all the pundits say a red wave is coming. You've been on both sides of that. Do you believe that?
No, I think it's much too early to make a judgment. I think there are a lot of factors that will play out. You know, the course of the conflict in Ukraine, other actions, where is inflation come September, October. I think it's much easier to see the wave coming if it is in September, not now.
If it is coming, should we at least have one Republican who can have a direct dialogue with the powers that be? Maybe that might be a second district.
No, I got to tell you, you know, we have been able with because of the talent of my colleagues, even in the Trump administration, we were very successful. In fact, I was able, working with Susan Collins, my colleague from Maine, Republican, to get a special program for bridges in the United States. And Rhode Island got the most money, $50 million a year. So that was a Republican president. I can also, you know, it's interesting too, we were able to convince President Trump to extend protections for the Liberians here in Rhode Island. And then we were able, working with Jim Inhofe as the Republican chairman of the Armed Services Committee, to get a lot done. Just
about 1 minute left. Should we forgive student loans?
I think we should look to forgiving student loans, but I think the mechanism should be by public service. I think we should have a program. In fact, we're trying to revive the one that was dismantled by the previous administration. Have one in which, if you commit yourself to serious public service, then your loans will be forgiven.
Should we waive federal penalties for marijuana possession? About 30 seconds left. That's going to come by the way, it's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. I think what we have to face that. We haven't really faced it yet, frankly. And because states are adopting it, they're legalizing it, and we're really out of sync with the states. But I'm looking forward to the debate on that one.
Senator, I want to have you back again, have you on the radio. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Gene. Always a pleasure.
Covered a lot of ground.